Are you struggling with your seatbelt?
Yeah, I am actually.
They're tricky chaps, aren't they?
Well, this one only really seemed to be a problem when it was on an upward slope. Oh, there we go.
There we are.
There we are. Do you want to do more podcast practice? Were you happy with that?
Sorry?
Were you happy with that?
No, pretty awful.
All of it was awful?
No, not all of it. Right, what should we discuss on the way home then? Would you like to come up with a subject for discussion, and I will give you my forthright opinion on whatever it is?
Yeah, I like this actually. As soon as you've negotiated your way out of this parking spot, which might be a bit tight, I have a subject for us to talk about.
There's a chap coming, and he looks wonderful. He's my favourite chap.
Oh, him?
From today. Isn't he great?
Oh, yeah.
He's absolutely cracking. Bless him. Lovely coat, shirt, tie.
Yeah.
He's totally my favourite.
And you'd like the way he walks like a penguin.
He's walking with... Look, he's obviously got... Oh, I'll have that one. I'll have that one, please.
She's a druggie.
That's right. Yeah, that would be fine. Right, your subject, then.
My subject would be milk and why it's good to use, to consume any kind of dairy products except for the cruelty side of it, which obviously I'm not particularly.
What do you mean, except for the cruelty side of it?
Besides that, milk.
What do you mean, besides
that, milk
right,
is
so
a good thing.
If you want to discuss the Holocaust, you're going to say, yeah, I mean, you know, apart from the cruelty bit,
that's not why you don't drink milk.
It's totally about the cruelty bit.
That's not why you don't like it.
It should be. It should be why everybody doesn't like it.
But it's not for you, is it? Your opinion is that milk is for babies and that's it.
That's what God intended. God provides. If you're a mammal, then God provides milk for a certain period of time, and then He cuts off the supply. And that's the point where you're supposed to stop drinking it. But that's a different argument to that's a different argument to dairy milk.
I think that's an excellent point, actually, that He cuts off the supply, and that's why, in order to have milk, you've got to kind of trick cows into making the stuff. It's just, why do they have to make it so nice? And why does cheese have to be so good? Why does yogurt have to be so good? Why does butter have to be good? It just proves just how cruel God is, because He gives us taste buds that want those things, and then also makes it clear that it's not a good idea.
It's nothing to do with God. God gives us the
toothache.
God gives us the gift of choice, and people make bad choice.
Why do you have to brake so aggressively?
Because the lights are turned red.
You just wasn't paying any attention then, was you not?
Yeah, God gives us the gift of choice, and people make bad choices. You can't blame God for that. The alternative to that would be God being a total nanny, and that's not His job. There's something very weird and innocuous about a train on the road.
There is, yeah.
Because that's what it is, really.
A road train.
So, milk is not, the consumption of milk is not, it's not justifiable morally. There is no moral case for drinking milk as an adult. But the consumption of milk is proof that people will, it's not that people will justify it, they will just say that justification isn't necessary. they will just selfishly say, I want to do this, so I will do it. And there's too much of that going on in the world.
That's not a new thing, though.
No, it's not a new
I mean,
thing, but
it's not like it's the entitled generation insisting
still,
that we have milk and cheese, is it?
No, it's just something that's always been there, and it shouldn't be there. There's no fundamental difference between you saying that it's delicious. I find it delicious, so even though I know that it's cruel and wrong, I will do it. Well, you're no different to the Americans dropping the atomic bomb on Hiroshima, or Hitler gassing millions of Jews. It's a more awful thing, but the fundamental behind it remains a constant, that people think that it's okay to be evil.
Gosh, you've really nailed that one down, haven't you? It's like you had that one ready.
Well, no, it's just an obvious truth, isn't it?
In some ways, yeah, it is. I hate it. I hate the whole cruelty aspect of it.
Well,
I just happen
no, you
to.
don't. No, you don't.
I
You feel that.
I just happen to want and feel the need to stay alive by having things that are good for me.
Absolute bollocks. You don't need milk to stay alive.
You don't need
You're
milk to stay
talking
alive.
nonsense.
No, you don't need milk to stay alive, but you do need food to stay alive.
Yeah.
And
You can survive perfectly happily on a vegetarian diet.
well, vegetarian diets are particularly healthy because there's an awful lot of stuff missing.
No, there isn't.
And it's a very inefficient way of getting your energy.
Right. Okay, well, tell that to a horse.
Well, I would do, but it's not listening.
No, don't be flippant.
I'm not being flippant. Can you speak to any horses?
Who's stronger, you or a horse?
I'd imagine that horse would be.
Horses don't eat meat. What's your next argument?
Horses don't eat meat.
No, that's not an argument. That's a fact.
But yeah, I know it's a fact. But it's not an argument either, is it?
Well, you're saying that a meat-free diet isn't healthy.
No, I'm saying it's not healthy for. It's not the healthiest diets you can have. What's stronger, an alligator or a rabbit?
You're talking nonsense.
Yeah, but I'm being
Wait,
flippant.
Well, why do you think that being flippant is an acceptable answer to the moral vacuum where you just ignore cruelty?
I don't think it is.
Okay, so
Right. Okay, so you're not vegetarian, are you?
no.
No. So you're okay to have a little bit of cruelty, but you don't want cruelty, but you need a little. You can't be completely free of cruelty at some point.
I don't think that. In what way do you think I'm cruel?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, you're not a vegetarian, so you will eat meat. You'll be eating some meat quite soon. Oh shit! Go on.
It's possible to eat meat morally.
It's not possible to eat meat without an animal dying, though, is it?
Do you think that death is automatically cruel? Death is part of life.
Death is part of life.
Everybody who lives dies.
Yep.
Every living thing
But
dies.
every living thing that dies prematurely is happening because their body is more useful to in food.
Yeah, but what you're forgetting is that they were created specifically for that purpose. And if that wasn't their end destination, they would not have been created in the first place.
In what way do you mean by created?
In that 99% of the food that we eat comes from animals that are bred specifically for consumption. So, in other words, the animals that are eaten would never have been born in the first place.
That's true.
Were it not for meat eaters.
But
So you say that they're dying prematurely, and in a sense they are, but in another sense, they're getting a taste of life that the otherwise would never have had.
Okay, I mean that also is a good point, but any animal is only there if it's bred for that purpose. So
No, that's not true.
whether it's for meat or for dairy.
No, that's not true. Many animals exist without being bred at all.
Yeah, that's not what I meant though, is it? You know that.
I don't know what you mean.
Do you know?
No.
I don't mean dogs. I don't. I mean that's what farming is, isn't it? Farming is a process in which animals or indeed vegetables or fruits is created for profit.
Well, for consumption,
For
yeah.
consumption, yeah. So whether that is lamb or cow or milk, it still involves
Yeah, it does.
something having to die because of it.
Yeah, but the idea you can draw an absolute dichotomy between something dying for worthwhile purposes and something dying for purposes that are less than worthwhile. Now, the idea of drinking milk is just wrong. So anything associated with that is even more wrong because it's happening for the wrong reason. It's not happening for a justifiable cause. And there's no arguing with that, is there?
Not for you, no.
Well, it's just
I don't really see that much difference between meat and milk as far as I know you
God
say,
intends us to eat meat.
Right.
God doesn't intend us to drink other creatures' milk.
right, but so does
It's
this
not for
apply
us.
if you actually don't believe in God?
Yeah, of course it does.
But if you don't believe that God exists,
Well,
then
it's quite-
how can
look.
you say intended us to do that?
Because it's perfectly simple. If you go into a pub and walk up to somebody else's table and drink their drink, is that acceptable? Whether you believe in God or not?
No, but that's
Of course, it's not acceptable.
Isn't that
so
irrelevant, though?
So what gives you the right to go up to an animal and steal their children's drink?
but the same right that gives you the urge to go and steal their legs to eat those.
It's not the same thing, though, is it?
It is.
Well, it's not, because God intended us to eat meat. He
Yep.
doesn't intend us to drink milk.
But we're back on whether God intends it to happen or not, or whether you think that there's other forces out there which have created us in the first place.
What are the forces? What
Well-
are you speaking of now?
I'm just... Don't look at me like that, you great whoopsie.
There's no rational explanation other than God.
That's not a rational explanation.
Of course it is.
It's not.
Of course it is.
It is for you, but it's not for me.
Well, that's only because you're not a rational man.
But that's easy for you to say. If you just say, well, that's because you're not rational, that's like I don't want to argue about
So
it.
what-
I'm just
okay.
going to state this as
So
fact,
what
and
is
there's
your
nothing else
what
for it.
is your rational argument for humanity then?
Well, it's progress, isn't it?
Okay, how did it start?
Started with algae.
How did that start?
Well, that's
How did the algae get there?
I'll tell you, 1 second. That is down to different carbon, basically.
How did carbon get there?
Well, carbon's an element.
How did the elements get there?
Well, you're saying that that God invented carbon.
Of course, God invented everything.
So did he invent? Did he actually create things, or just invent the ingredients?
Both.
You can't do both.
Yes, you can.
No, that's
You can. Yeah, you can. It's like having some Lego, right? You buy a big Lego kit for a kid, and you make one small Lego thing to show them what can be done with the Lego, and then you leave them to it to make what they want to make with the rest of the Lego. Well, that's what God has done with the world. He's given us some pointers. He said, look, this is the sort of thing you can do if you fancy it.
That's a really good stupid argument. I like it.
Well, it's the truth, though, isn't it? You know, it's not a fashionable thing to say, but you know, there is a strong argument for smiting the non-believing infidels. Give them a right good smiting where it counts. That'd give their heads a wobble. Now, am I better parked here or over there? Maybe over there. Right, time to go and have lunch.